Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hi friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Dale Hahs, CEO of AIS Industrial and Construction Supply located in Denver, Colorado. Dale is one of those leaders who never thought he would wind up in the family distribution business. After pursuing a degree in accounting, he tried the business on for size, and it just happened to fit. Here he is over 20 years later. He attributes a lot of his success to his membership in affiliated distributors and the tremendous networking opportunities he received there. It was a pleasure catching up with Dale, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. All right, Dale. Hey, welcome to Distribution Talk. And hey, thank you so much for taking the time with me.
You bet, Jason. My pleasure.
Been a long time, my friend. I want to say I was roaming around your streets probably in 2001, 2-ish, something like that. Right. So it's been a long time since we've seen each other face to face.
I know. I think we did lunch with my uncle at a local restaurant and a hotel near us.
I am sure that we did, actually. Yeah. Hey, what's the name of that? Okay, now I'm going to go a little off topic. What is the name of that place that has the liquor license number 1 in Denver?
Oh, right.
The place with all the dead animals.
Right. Oh, gosh. No, my memory is...
It's a something saloon. I can't remember what it is. I don't know.
I know exactly what it is.
That's okay. Okay, we went far off topic. Well, so if you wouldn't mind, though, hey, give me a little history lesson. You've been in this business a long, long time. So if you wouldn't mind just sharing with the listeners, how long you've been in the biz.
You bet. I graduated from Westmont College in Santa Barbara in 1985 with a degree in math. And I had worked 2 summers for the business for my grandfather. And I really didn't have a direction of where I wanted to go. And I was talking to my brother who was staying with me in the summer in Santa Barbara. And he said, well, go work for Granddad and get some experience. So I came out. He was struggling with colon cancer. I came out in 85. He actually died in 86. So I only got about a year with him. Mm-hmm. And my first role when I started was in accounts receivable, entering invoices, billing invoices, collections, all of that. And as I was given more responsibility, more of the accounting things to do, I needed to have an idea of how all that works. So I went back to school, went to Metro State College and got a BS in accounting. And that has really helped with having all of the financial background and the ability to understand financial statements. Early on, my Uncle Kobe was at a point where he was ready to offload responsibility. So he just kept giving me stuff. So, I kind of learned on the job and moved around within the company and learned different things, purchasing for a while. Early on, I remember that I'd be out in the bullpen doing, billing invoices, and the phone would ring and my uncle would say, pick up the phone. I had no clue, but that's how you learn sales. Grab a catalog, figure out what the customer needs. And, and I learned early on, just being nice and kind to the customer can go a long way. And, I kind of developed a niche following of customers that I was taking care of customers probably up until about 6 years ago when I stepped away from my last customer. The day-to-day would call me and I would write up orders, but it was good to always keep that fresh. But probably in 2005, I became the CEO and really took on the major roles of overseeing and driving business and the vision and making sure all of the wheels are turning.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. You've had that benefit of learning the business from the ground up, and it's kind of the same way that I grew up as well. You start and you didn't know if you wanted to do this for a career, but all of a sudden you said, "Well, let me give it a shot," and then all of a sudden, 19 years later, you're like, "Hey, what happened here?"
What happened? No, it's been a great career, and the things that I've been able to do, I don't think would have been able to do in any other career.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I've said this in a number of interviews and discussions with friends is that distribution has a PR problem. It is a great career, but we don't tell enough young people about it. They don't get it, that it's a great way to make a living. If you just continually learn, do the next right thing, you can be in this a long time and have a very, very nice, comfortable career.
You can, definitely.
Yeah. So throughout that, history, you've seen some technological beginnings, advances, maybe a couple trips through the road. Could you share with me, some of those
Yeah.
different tech changes?
So when I joined the company in '85, my grandfather had bought this computer. It was called a Quantel. It was a mainframe computer with a 75 megabyte copper disk that all the data was stored on. And he had actually hired in-house programmers to write custom software for us. It was all DOS based. It actually worked pretty well, but pretty early on we were reaching the limits of that, and we no longer had the programmers, so it wasn't being updated. So we were able to hook up with a company out of California called Advanced Business Software,
Mm-hmm.
who had actually written software for the Quantel. So
Mm-hmm.
we were able to migrate over into their software, and then they subsequently rewrote everything to run on a Windows platform. So then we
Okay.
migrated with them to Windows and PCs, and then along the way gained all of the capabilities that come with having a Windows system. And their Windows system that they build, it's on a SQL database.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
back end, all this capability of pulling data out and running all sorts of reports. So I think that's one of the strengths of where we're at now. One of the things that I really like to do is use Excel to pull reports from any data that we have in our system to analyze any sort of thing. And I've also been able to use that for creating custom integrations, taking the promos that come from vendors like Milwaukee and their complicated quarterly promos. We've been able to integrate that in so we can see what we have on the shelf, what we're low on, what we paid for this in the past, what we want to take advantage of, and then we created a template with their help where we can push that back into our ordering system, because before it was all done very manually, printing off PDFs and making notes and looking to see what you had and what you sold. And so we've really been able to get some cool features that way and efficiency. So I'm always on the manufacturers to get me promos in spreadsheets so that I can integrate them in. And it's amazing how some of them just don't get that, and they can't give
Yeah.
it to me in that fashion.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I was in a conversation, maybe it was this last month, with a group I facilitate. We were talking about, data, getting that from your suppliers. And it's shocking how they could only provide that in a PDF, for example.
Right.
I can't do much with a PDF, guys. I
I
mean,
know.
I might be able to try to manipulate, but it's shocking to me that PDF had to come from somewhere and they can't seem to get it back to that base level. And it's like, come on, guys, you're killing me here.
I
And
know.
we talked at length about some of the distributors I was talking with. They actually started pushing that responsibility back on the individual rep for that company and saying, you get to translate it now and then give it to me in the format I'm looking for. Just
Which is what I end up doing. But I always argue, and I have this conversation over and over at the AD fall meetings with our vendors, that
yeah.
why are you having all your individual reps do all this individual work for us to give it to us in spreadsheets? Why don't you just corporately create one clean one that you can provide the promo data to us? Sometimes they don't get it, or there's things they aren't telling you that internally they don't want to have that in a spreadsheet so that all of their special pricing could get disseminated quickly, or there's
Right.
reasons they don't tell you about it, but it does really speed things up when you can do it that way.
Well, I think to that point, there is a fear, but I've always found that fear based decision making is never going to be the most efficient way to go about
I
something.
agree. I
It's
agree.
like, come on, man. And I think that and really that's one area I think that the suppliers that you and I grew up with, that you and I know, that their ability to collaborate from a data standpoint is still pretty prehistoric. I mean, it's not in good shape. And you'd think, after as long as you and I have been around this, you'd think it would have progressed pretty rapidly, for some
Right.
better collaboration.
Well, some people have done better than others. I mean,
Okay,
I have one of our biggest manufacturers that's gotten really good at it, and they
good.
always have a promo cheat sheet that's prepared at the same time that my rep can go in and download from their cloud-based, resource area. So some of them get really good at it. Others of them, they still struggle with the same issues and seem to work around all the technology, and don't really progress in certain areas.
And I wonder if there will come a point in time where that those who are reluctant will eventually find themselves with diminishing a diminishing role in your company, or diminishing share of wallet in your company, because you're just so fed up with it after a certain point.
I tell them I'm going to buy more if I have full visibility to all of the items I could buy, because when I plug it into what I need, I see things that I would never see through a PDF, mainly because I just get tired of flipping the pages, and then say you get to a long section of Sawzall blades and it's buy 1,000 Sawzall blades and get 10% off. The brain damage of trying to pull all those up individually and look at that, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. But I see things. I mean, I have it set up so I see in red the things that meet my requirements for buying, so I quickly know what
Right.
I need to buy. And I always tell them the point is that I will buy more if you give me that data.
And that's so frustrating. Is you've said the magic words, I will buy more.
Yeah,
And everything after that statement should be written. They should be furiously scrawling this down. I will
yeah,
buy more if, and take notes, guys. And really, what you're asking of them is not rocket science. It's not
no,
crazy. Yeah, it's not out of the box stuff. I mean, this is stuff that
it's
they should be able to do. It can be extremely frustrating. I think, honestly, again, the industry, that you and I both grew up in, sometimes is slow to adapt to that type of thing,
it
and
is
maybe wants to rest on its loyalty and laurels for a long time.
right. And sometimes you got to step back and say, okay, is it? I've beat my head against this issue for too long. They're an important vendor partner of mine. Okay, we'll do it a different way. I mean, you have people within your organization too that you reach a point and you say, they're never going to embrace this technology. I'm
Right.
going to stop beating this dead horse and let's just find a different way to do it. I'm going to give it to them in paper,
Yeah.
and we'll work around it.
Dale, it's so interesting because I find that younger people sometimes, and it's not a knock on younger people. I have a lot of faith in some of the younger people joining the distribution industry, but that they don't understand that sometimes that compromise
Right.
is it's what's necessary to get work done,
Exactly.
and that can be a stumbling block for them. You can have the bull in the china shop running around, and then eventually you have to realize, hey, look, this individual that you were trying to get some productivity out of, they're going to have to see it a different way.
Right. Right. And that translates well into when our guys go out and sell too. They need to
Yeah.
know the type of customer they're selling to. Does that customer embrace technology? Do they want it their information to them in a certain fashion, or do they want it old school? They
Right.
just were able to call up and give you a generic description. So you really need to adapt to every customer and how they want to do business with you, where their comfort level is.
Right. Well, and it's definitely dropping the ego. It's leave the ego at the door, and say, hey, look, how do you want to do business with me?
Right. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then find a way to do that. Yeah, have spent a lot of time actually on studying generational differences, and really, whenever I coach and work with salespeople, and I speak with, especially like I teach manufacturers reps sometimes how to sell
Right.
into the staff to channel and the construction supply channel. And I do spend a lot of time on that generational difference and say, hey, look, these different generations are going to respond differently. It's not a one size fits all, and you're going to be much more successful if you start recognizing these different things. So,
Right. Exactly. But it's good to have the younger generation in the company. My son is it works for me and has for probably the past 4 years, and he picks up technology so much quicker than I do. And I
oh,
think the
sure.
older I get, my learning curve to onboard new technology is a little slower. So glad to have him. Like, he came in and helped me set the do not disturb on my phone. He made sure that the picture was set up right. He turned off notifications. So he does things that I don't even think about it, and they do it intuitively because they grew up with that technology.
Right. Yeah. And that's not a language that, you and I have to adapt to those things. We have to try to learn on the fly. So, kind of as you're alluding to, that doesn't come as quick as it used to, maybe.
It doesn't.
Yeah. No. Well, that's kind of interesting, actually. You've invited your son into the business.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's that been going? What are you doing there?
Oh, it's been great. Taylor wasn't really geared to go to college. He's more of a
Yeah.
hands-on learner. So he's done a lot of his learning here at work. He worked the counter, he worked sales, he worked the warehouse. He was in tool repair for a whole year, repairing tools. And then the
Hmm.
last couple of years, he's been in e-commerce, and now he's taken on the role of kind of technical operations. So I mean, he does a lot of looking for technology that can help us. He took over our video camera system, so he's able to quickly pull up videos of events that happen around here. Either something gets stolen or water main break
Sure.
in front of the building or all sorts of stuff. So it's really cool to see the way that he can look and find how new technologies can help us get a little more efficient and move forward. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun to have him here.
It's interesting. Every once in a while I get accused of knocking on college education because sometimes I feel like kids who don't necessarily have an aptitude right away to go to college, right out of high school, that they don't get the same level of respect. But I'll tell you, you bring them into your company and let them, learn on the fly, and there's just amazing things they can contribute.
Yeah,
And
and these days you can get the learning you need in little bite-sized chunks. Like he got an interest in looking at efficiency, so he stumbled across Six Sigma, and then
yeah,
within that he looked at Kaizen. Or
yeah,
probably not saying it right, but so he
yeah,
took
yeah, that's right.
an
Yeah,
online course just to learn how to use that. And I told him, the key is if you once you learn it, implement it. So he's going to start. He's come up with a flow chart of the process for our sales, and he's going to take a look at building a team to look at the efficiencies of that. But to be able to take a little course and distill that knowledge and then put it right into action, that's such practical learning compared to how you do it in college, where you spend 4 years on all these different subjects and you never know if you're going to use it or not. No, I believe college is great and it gives you a well-rounded Renaissance experience that wouldn't have any other way, but it's not for everybody.
and it's not, you're right, it's not for everybody. And I think that's the thing that's so frustrating is that in many cases, especially in the education system, that it's supposed to be for everybody, and that's what's driven down. Whereas, highly impressed, that he was able to go out and find this online course and find the things that he needs at the time. And I've interviewed now, literally just a week or so ago, I interviewed a young guy who he started in college a little bit, but realized that he didn't need to stay there. That his entrepreneurial spirit, that he could take some of the things he learned, but then he would source the things that he needed and
Exactly.
source those types of things that brought, that you recognize that you've got a deficiency in. And so now I've seen this in a lot of different highly successful distributors that have, maybe didn't complete a college career or didn't even decide to start one and really came out. In fact, one, former client, he decided not to go to college and probably one of the most successful distributors I've ever seen out there. So, I mean, and again, it's not a knock on college because I do agree with you. Hey, I loved it. Loved it so much I stayed an extra year.
I know. Very, very expensive way to have a lot of fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And it's much more expensive these days too, Dale. When you and I were going to school, ah, you know, very doable.
I know. I don't know how kids do it with all the debt, but that's another good
Yeah.
reason not to go to college is avoid all that debt.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. Hey, I wanted to segue here, talking a little bit about, some of the different changes in the company. Originally, I think, again, when your grandfather and was it your uncle that preceded you
Yeah,
in the role?
my uncle Kobe, and it was my mom's dad
Kobe.
that started the company. I grew up out in California. My dad was never involved in the business. So yeah, my uncle Kobe was, and he still is the president. So he was running the company before I
Okay.
came on board.
So you all were highly industrial at that point, and you made a shift more towards commercial construction. And when was that? About what year did you say you made that shift?
It was about it was because we hired a sales guy in 1986 that's who he sold to. And
Gotcha.
in order to support those customers, we started bringing on all those lines to support them. And then a lot of it was, I told people, we just adapted with what was happening in the local Colorado marketplace. And
Yep.
that has been the thing that has been really steady through the years is commercial construction. You know,
Sure. Sure.
the other things kind of went by the wayside with the advent of the internet and people buying things a little differently. And but
Hmm.
a lot of it is, who do you get the most support from vendor wise? Where are you finding the most business? And we'll just ride the waves of business as it comes through Colorado and try to adapt and continue to hold on to those legacy industrial lines, because those
Yeah.
commercial construction guys buy all those too. And there's a
Hmm.
lot of other MRO and government entities and manufacturers you can sell to. But the construction space, especially commercial construction, has been very good for us.
And it has for a number of years, even since I lived there. I mean, the building. I don't think I'd recognize Denver any longer. The proliferation of that construction, the commercial construction. I mean, it's pretty substantial, and so you all being a long term player there. I mean, you can really ride that wave for a long time.
Right. Yeah. But it's nice because we are so diverse and we sell into so many different marketplaces that when one thing is down, we can look at other avenues where we can sell that same product into a different vertical. And then try along the way too to do as much online as we can with all those products that we're stocking anyway. eBay has become a big way for us to sell online, and we've
Oh, interesting.
under COVID, we probably almost doubled what we were doing before, and it was fairly significant. Maybe 5% of our business
It
was.
was sold through eBay.
Yeah, yeah,
No kidding.
yeah.
Hmm,
And
very interesting.
it's closeout stuff. It's stuff we have good deals on. It's niche things,
Yeah.
but cool thing about eBay is it's instant feedback. You throw it up,
Yeah.
and you know if you've got something that will work. So, anytime like when we evaluate the promos that come through, we'll see, hey, do we think this could play on eBay also? So you always kind of a backup vertical that you can sell to in addition to, your normal local marketplace.
Since you've seen both sides of the fence in the progression of the company, which side is, I don't know, I don't want to say more interesting, but which one tends to have more action in it? Is it industrial? Is it construction? Which one do you feel like is kind of the future?
Hmm. Wow. Well, I mean, for us, we're so immersed in commercial construction that's what we understand, and
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
probably is the horse that we continue to ride. And there's been so much innovation in tools by manufacturers trying to come up with new ways of doing things that someone like Milwaukee Tools, they create so many new tools that it's so hard to keep up with. But a lot of that is why you grow, because they're creating a market for all this stuff that didn't exist before. And if you support them, which we do through the entire line, you grow just because they added new sectors on here. They're getting into the utility business. They develop all these 12-volt tools and all different
Yep.
functions, like little tire inflator that I carry in the back of my truck.
I have seen that.
So
Yes. I know what you're talking
set it
about.
to the PSI you want, hit it, and it stops when it's supposed to. I mean, just innovations that we would have never thought of.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think you and I both seen the progression of, especially the cordless power tool world.
Right,
Just going as far back as the 9.6 battery, in Makita,
right.
cordless, and then to what do you got, 20, 40, 60-volt things now, and it's
Yeah,
insane.
I was at the rollout for the 28-volt lithium ion in Florida. It was at a builder show, and I've got a picture of a DeWalt guy looking at a V28 battery, like, what is this? I mean,
Hmm.
these guys, they're always competing behind the scenes, but
Sure. Sure.
Milwaukee was the first one to roll it out. So it's been
Yeah.
cool to see that innovation start in that whole lithium ion space.
Absolutely. No, it is fascinating stuff. I mean, and I'm looking at my personal tool shed going, well, I could probably use an upgrade now, even though this stuff
Right.
works probably perfectly fine, but
Yeah,
you
one of
just
the
kind of get
coolest tools we
pressured.
have at home that I got from our DeWalt rep is a little chainsaw that runs off an 18 volt. So
Yep.
you don't have a cord, you don't have any gas, and
Yeah.
you can go cut down anything.
Yeah.
Awesome, incredible tools that are being created.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then you also mentioned that at some point you all kind of pivoted towards the safety realm. What prompted that?
Again, it's all customer driven. The customers are requesting hard hats, they're requesting gloves, they're creating safety vests, and they're already have a relationship and they're buying from you, and they want this stuff. And then OSHA helps too, because OSHA's going out every so often rolling out new rulings, and then when they're enforcing it, that's when these guys are desperate to find it immediately. So it's probably the fastest growing category of anything that we sell. We recently just were wrapping up putting together a safety flyer because for so long people had no idea that we sold the breadth of safety items that we do. So we spent a long time kind of analyzing all of the different things we sell. So we really put a good, that's a 28-page document that has a good representation of the individual types of items we sell rather than using, a generic safety catalog from a wholesaler and they may have stuff in there that you don't stock, so trying to come up with something that's specific to us.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you kind of mentioned that, with the diversification of products that you all carry, there's a lot of opportunity for your customers to not know what you stock.
Oh yeah. I mean, every day our sales guys will walk in and see something that they bought from somebody else and tell them, hey, you could have bought that from us. Oh, I didn't know you sold it. Oh, one
Right.
thing we just recently did is I hired a Google photographer to shoot through our building 360-degree video.
Oh,
And it's
wow.
just been uploaded to our Google listing with a street view where you can walk through the building. And I was testing it, kind of doing the tour that I normally give to people, but I was able to walk through the showroom, down what we
Yeah.
call the breezeway into the main warehouse and start navigating through. But that's going to be an incredible tool for, especially in COVID times, we could give virtual tours. You could go to
Sure.
your customer, pull it up on the phone, and say, "Here, this is all the inventory we have. Here, let's navigate over to our shelving division. These are the lockers we sell. This is our tool repair." So, because that's been one of the strengths, the way for the customer to really be sold on us is to get them in the building and walk them through. Because we have 50,000 square feet. From the front, it looks a lot smaller than it really is, and they don't
Yeah. Yeah.
realize all the products that we have. So that'll be a fun resource.
Fascinating. Yeah. So, I mean, now I guess you just reached out to a Google rep to do that. I
Well,
mean,
actually, I was cold called by someone that said, "Hey, we're doing this in your area." I actually signed up with them, and then I thought better of it. I thought, well, let me Google and see if somebody else could do this. And then I found a local guy here in Colorado because these other people were just traveling through. But it was sparked by somebody cold calling. And then I didn't realize that could be done. But he sent me to his website where he had links to where he had done this for other businesses, dentists, or anybody who
yeah.
wants to showcase their facility. You can do it just like you would like Google navigation around the streets. You
Yeah.
can do it inside the building.
What a cool thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, because one of the biggest challenges for distributors is sharing the breadth of inventory that they carry. I always like to say, the best kept secret often, from your customers is what's on the shelf. And
exactly.
interesting. Oh, that's kind of a neat way to approach that. So,
Yeah,
oh,
and we
cool.
recently completely redid our informational website, and we're hoping
Yeah.
to tie in those videos into different spots in the website so that we can, you know, have little snippets of here, take a tour of our shelving division in our shelving division website. And I think there's a lot of ways we can use those pictures.
Sure. Well, that's a great segue, my friend, to take a look at your baby right now, the e-commerce project you've got going. Yeah,
Yes,
tell us a little bit about that.
we're part of affiliated distributors, and I think it was probably about 5 years ago. AD looked at e-commerce and they put together a committee that said, how can we help our distributors really compete in this space? And after analyzing it all, they decided that the best way they could compete is creation of data, because
Yeah.
there's all sorts of platforms available that you can plug data in, but having consistent data is the hard part. So they hired a company to create data on their behalf, and they've been doing it ever since. And we were one of the pioneers that signed up with that. So the ability that gives us is we can focus on the platform, and we already have a lot of the data available to be able to flesh out those items and have them visible on the web with all of the characteristics and specifications and pictures that you need. You don't have to go out and find that. And the other cool thing is they have a consistent taxonomy or categorization that they've created across brands, because we did pay for some data that the folks that got it from it for us just scraped vendor websites and then dumped it all in. But the problem is you get different ways of categorizing things. So you have duplicate categories that are essentially the same thing. It may even be just a spelling difference. So
Hmm.
you could have items listed 4 or 5 different ways. There's no consistency. So that's probably the biggest strength of the AD data project, is a consistent categorization. So we've adopted that. We can onboard without having to come up with our own categorization system, and it fits. They did a lot of normalization and looking at the big boxes and how they categorize things, and then they tried to normalize it across all of our divisions. So that has really helped us, and we're getting close to. We decided to pivot from a platform that a e-commerce site that was built on Magento, and
Yeah.
we're going to an e-commerce site that's connected into our ERP system, Advanced Business Software, so we can maintain it within our database. It syncs automatically with our inventory, so we're not having to do separate uploads to show what we have in stock. So on our site, you'll be able to just click refine and see what's in stock. But I see this as being as big a tool for my inside sales guys to know what we sell, in addition to having our customers being able to find what we sell. So I think it'll just be a great tool for bringing together everything we sell across brands. So I'm
Yeah.
really excited about it.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think, and I like that you are recognizing the benefit internally, not only externally.
It's kind of a system change for me. Our first website we
Yeah.
built was really, and my thought was trying to bring people in from external and capture our customers that were buying on eBay and trying to bring them in. But we just had such a deficiency with our customers asking us for, well, can I find it on your website? But then the website doesn't show all the things we have. So that's the goal, is to have, just like somebody could do a walk through our facility and see all the things we have. I want people to be able to walk through the website and see our particular mix of products. So that's the goal.
Gotcha. Now, you alluded to really the kind of catalyst for this was AD. Was that was the one that really pushed you ahead with this thing? And I know that you've been a long supporter and long member of AD. Can you tell me a little bit about what benefits you've got out of this? I mean, this is something that I find that a lot of people join groups, all sorts of different groups, but don't understand how to get the most benefit out of it, and they play on the sidelines, for example. So, could you tell us a little bit about your affiliation with affiliated distributors?
Right, right. Well, we joined in 1999, and we were actually approached by AD because they wanted a distributor that could help facilitate some business with Kodak in Windsor, Colorado. Or they approached us. I didn't know anything about what a marketing or buying group was. I
Yeah,
really had no idea. It wasn't on our radar. So it was really a wonderful thing that they approached us, because it's been a great partnership. And the neat thing about AD is it's a learning platform, it's a sharing place, and you're talking about struggle to participate. AD really forces you to participate. I mean, they have
Hmm.
requirements where you need to go to 2 meetings a year. You need to
Hmm.
send decision makers from your location, and you need to participate in filling out your quarterly reports, and they put some teeth in them. And probably the best way that I learned was being able to be part of the executive committee. I was asked to be a chairman of a network and run the network and facilitate it. We're divided up into non-competing networks so that you feel free to discuss your ideas. You're with guys that you don't compete with. And so I was, from 2007 for 10 years, I was able to be a facilitator. And that morphed about halfway through into the executive committee, became the divisional board for the industrial division of AD. So that was another great learning experience to rub elbows with guys like John Weborg with Stellar,
Yeah, sure. I
John
know, John. Yeah,
with NH Bragg, and I mean I learned so much
yeah,
from these guys. They're just the leaders in our industry, and I think that's the biggest thing you learn is just that interaction with guys. Some of the best ideas that I've gotten is just being in our network and talking with people, and they have an idea about how they did things at their business that you never would have thought about, and you bring it back to your business and implement it and see some good results. And then in our fall meeting, we have a chance to network with vendors, and you develop relationships that way up the food chain within a vendor, where you have people that that you can call up when you need to get something done, and just the friendships. So recently, Tom Blue announced
yeah,
his
yeah.
retirement, and I've known Tom for years at Milwaukee, and just a great guy. And then when he came over to AD, he brought all those relationships over, and he was in the role of bringing people, distributors into AD. He just fit that so perfectly. So it seems like a lot of the guys I know are starting to retire. So that's
I know the feeling, Dale. I know, man. I know.
it's all happening at once. And now I got to, meet all these new people. But that's the cool thing about AD. And that's something that I really
Yeah.
miss about, not being able to go to those meetings in person, because they are such great learning opportunities.
Yeah, that's funny you should say that. All the guys that we kind of looked up to that, are probably maybe about 10 years our senior or something, they are starting to, hang up the cleats or at least find other ways. So, yeah, it is a kind of a different, it's a changing of the guard, I guess, is the best way to put it. Yeah, yeah, it is. It's good, and frankly, young people can't wait to kick us off the out of the game, and so they can get in and do their thing. So I really do appreciate, that peer networking aspect that you just alluded to. I mean, this is something that over the last probably 3 years, 3, 4 years, I've really become to focus my practice on is
Right.
that peer sharing and peer network, because I find that, as you just said, some of the best ideas come from other people that do the same business, and they can just share those ideas. And it's nothing new. Peer networking is nothing new, but I think that personally, this is just my personal belief, and I know the Vistage guys are going to hate me for this, but I like collaborating with other distributors. That's
Right.
just me. That's just where I think that there's more value. But I think anytime though you do get to, business people together and share ideas, only good things can come from it.
Right. And just reassurance that you're not the only one going through these problems and these
Yeah.
issues and these struggles. That's a big part of it. Just
Yeah.
it's like therapy for industrial distributors to go to,
Definitely. Yeah.
really, and you're able to vent in an arena where your fellow network members understand what you're going through, because they struggle with the
Yeah.
same things. I remember being at a meeting, and I get a call in the middle of the meeting that somebody had put a complaint into OSHA from a flood we had had in the buildings, and I was able to, during the meeting, request information, and the other guys helped me. They sent to their people back home and said, "Hey, do you have any safety manuals or things that we can do for documentations to provide to OSHA?" But they were willing to stop the meeting and help us out with an individual problem. So, you develop friendships of guys that can help you learn and grow. And do life in distribution.
Shared pain creates some strong bonds, doesn't it? Well, yeah, I'll tell you, I totally agree with, yeah, that affiliation and, really trying to get in the middle of those groups. And I'm really glad you stepped up and said, yeah, I'll chair this thing because, without people volunteering and raising their hands, these groups are not as strong, and so anybody who joins a group and kind of sits on the sidelines doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, you've got to be willing to be stretched and to be pushed out of your comfort zone and do something different, because that's really when you have the greatest feeling of accomplishment. It
Yeah.
really was a stretch for me, but an incredible learning experience.
Well, hopefully you can share that with your son Taylor and
Yeah,
talk about that.
he is anxious to start going to AD meetings.
I remember some of my first meetings as well that I attended, and being overwhelmed by the bright lights and all the different things going, and then it starts to make a little bit of sense after a while. So,
Yeah, no, it's cool.
yeah,
I mean, after coming back from a meeting, the challenge is to take all those ideas you've learned and really implement something. And I always say if you can implement two or three things, it's a
yeah.
success. But that's the hard part, because you come back, you get thrust into the day-to-day work and everything that's piled up, and if you don't consciously, you know, have a plan to implement, it just goes away. And you find yourself a year later throwing away all your notes and like, I don't know what this means. But
It's so funny. I remember I'm just kind of thinking back. Our exec team would hate it when my dad would come back from one of those meetings, because all of a sudden the pot was getting stirred and there was going to be a flurry of activity and everybody was going to be, having to find a change. Yeah. Well, hey, Dale, it's been an absolute pleasure catching up with you. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it.
no, my pleasure. It's been a lot of fun.
All right. You take care, and I look forward to the next time our paths cross.
Come see us next time you're in Colorado.
I will definitely do that. Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider hitting that subscribe button. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area on your podcast application or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by Andrea Klunder and Edwin Ruiz at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, The Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.